I'm going to be talking about the production plan and why is it important to have. I have some experience in that, so let me tell you a little bit more about me. I've worked at CD Projekt Red as a producer for a couple of years. Then I moved on to 11-bit Studios, where I worked on an upcoming Frostpunk game that's coming this year. It's PC. So as you can see, at CD Projekt I work on the Witcher series, the mobile game The Witcher Battle Arena, and now the Witcher card game, Gwent, that it's available on consoles. And basically I moved on to publishing side of things. So having my knowledge and experience, I'm actually using it right now as a publisher, working with developers. And working with many Asian titles, westernizing them and putting them on the market. So, let's move on. You probably know who is a producer, but you're probably not looking at it from this angle as I am. So, quick quiz. Is a producer a manager, or a boss, or a cheerleader? And actually it's kind of tricky, so let me just tell you right now that a producer in every company, be it small or big, is actually a facilitator. So it's not a position about a power, and it never should be. Definitely you are a manager, but you're a manager of tasks rather than, and production plan rather than people. Sometimes the producer is a boss, but not really always, not in every studio. And some studios don't even have producers, but at the same time they actually have other people who are doing production work. And this is very important to remember, that even though you don't have someone who's called a producer per se, you definitely might having one. And of course, last but not least, you should be a cheerleader for your team. Producer's job is to make the team happy and basically to keep a track on what you're doing. And without being cheerful about it, you're not probably going to finish a game or be it make a successful game. So, as I mentioned, you manage all the tasks as a producer. You keep an eye on the features, and this is important. I'm going to be talking about the features more because this is one of the reasons that most of your game development and production will flop and you're never going to finish a game. You have the in-depth knowledge of the game itself, and this is also quite interesting. I've been working with producers before who never played games, and they don't play games. They're just, what we call them in the industry, they're just spreadsheet keepers. So they're the ones who are just tracking all the stuff, like how much percentage of the task, feature, game is done, but they never play games. And the good producer, and especially I got that knowledge from CD Projekt, the good producer is the one who actually plays the games that much that they know them by their heart, just as game designers or testers. And, which is also quite interesting, you're not really an expert in anything. So if you are a lead programmer and then you're going to get promoted to a producer, or a lead artist who's going to be a producer, you're not going to be an expert in your field anymore, because you're going to be managing the tasks and the production plan rather than what you were doing all this time. And this is also quite important because I've been working with producers who were artists or programmers before, and they try to push their own ideas about code, about art into others, rather than helping them out in finding out solutions to the problem. So they're just making more problems. Alright, so what's up with the production plan itself? Some of you might say, like, we don't really need a producer, but as I mentioned before, you already have one, even if you don't see it like that or you don't think about it like that. So basically, a person in your team or in your company who's managing the tasks, and the person who goes from programmer to programmer and designer to designer, artist to artist, and asking them how their work is doing, how they're going with their work, do they have any problems, do they encounter any bugs with their work. You're actually doing a producer's work if you're doing that. So technically you actually are a producer, even if you don't have the title. This is quite an interesting thing. This is taken from American McGee's Alice. You might know this game. And this is the Grim Art Pipeline, how they called it, just for the art that they had in the company. If this is scary for you, don't worry. After a couple of years being a producer and working with games, you're actually going to decipher it very quickly, and you're going to understand it very precisely. So there are a lot of things going on here. It doesn't really matter about the departments that are here. It's the complexity of it and the internal work and the outsourcing work that you have here. Don't really be scared of it, because sooner or later you're going to embrace it, and at some point in production you're going to do something like this and you're going to totally understand it, and your team eventually will understand it as well. So how do we start with it? If you want to plan out a very good production plan, especially the one that you're going to share with stakeholders, with publishers, with media partners, you have to follow three following questions, or one just very long question. So, how much time do we have before the money runs out and we achieved what we wanted with the game? And this is the part where actually most of us game developers, we fail. So from those points you can easily say about the schedule of the game, about the time that we have, about the budget, so how much money we have before everything goes to ashes, and the game features that we have. And this is actually the last one, is the most common one when we fail. So we want to put as many features as we wanted to the game, up to the point that we break the game, or we make the game less fun, or we actually run out of money or time to do it. So let me tell you how to make it properly, so you don't fall into your own trap of developing a game without a plan, because it's always fun to do a game, just for the sake of doing a game, but if you want to finish it, you have to stick with the plan that you have. So there are some examples of how the production plan can look like. It can be a Gantt chart, it can be simple schedule going through days, things to do, and some notes. It can be graphs that are representing what we have to do next, and this is especially very good for QA and for testers when they go through stuff. And last but not least, the Excel. So you can start out with just simply doing an Excel sheet, and to be honest, this is actually how I started. I worked as a journalist before and a marketing person, then I went to community management, and when I landed the production job, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, and I was working for one of the veterans in the industry who were making The Witcher 3, and I was like, how do I approach this? I couldn't just go day one to someone and ask them, can you teach me about production, because I'm not sure what I'm doing right here. And instead of that, I actually took our team. Back then, it was a team of 8 people. We managed to be more than 100 on Gwent. And I actually started out with doing a simple plan with a to-do list. So I had only 3 statuses: to do, work in progress, and done. And we started out like that. And everybody had the spreadsheet, everybody knew what to do. And then, the more I got to know it, the more I got to know actually all the tools that we were using in the future. So if you heard about Handsoft, Jira, and all the other programs that are helping you out with production, the best way to get to know them better is to start with Excel. Because Excel not only gives you the experience in production, but ultimately you'll actually get better with understanding all the functions and everything you need to have from Office, Microsoft Office Excel. So this is quite cool for you in both ways. So either way, you'll get experience in that. But what's even more important is that I've worked with, right now, I think more than 10 different production softwares. And the one we ended up with some of the teams was actually Excel. Because the most important thing in game production is not for you to understand the game production plan, but your team. So if you're gone, you're sick, you're on vacation, whatever, and somebody else has to take the tasks off of you, they have to do the production, or they have to understand what you have in the schedule, they actually have to understand it. And I also went through times where people didn't understand at all what I had, because it was super understandable for me. It was fantastic for doing, reports about the game development, but at the same time, nobody understood a thing from the sheet itself. So then I started changing it. I started talking with the team to make them feel it a little bit more, to understand it, and basically, at some point, I didn't really have to go through every single person and ask them what they're doing, but everything was just working by itself. So they were all managing all these things that they were doing, and basically the Excel was just showing how much time we got left, and everything worked perfectly. But it took some time, years actually. So, why is it important to make a production plan that's going to be good and not going to suck? Making the team feel that they've accomplished something. And when you're working on a game that's going to take you years rather than months or weeks to complete, to finish, you're going to be fighting with a problem of people not being interested in the project anymore. They're just fed up with it. They don't care about it that much. They want to move to something else. But we really can't do that, because we're working on it and we have to finish it before we move on to something new. So when you have a good production plan and the team sees that actually 60% of the game was already done and you have most of the features in, and now it's only bug fixes and like 1-2 features more, they're gonna be extremely happy. Like, they're gonna go over the top with their work. And this is also based from my experience. Every single time when we were struggling, it was because people didn't feel that we're achieving anything. Like, we had bugs constantly, the game wasn't looking as good as we wanted to, the art wasn't really top-notch as we wanted it to, and we had to revise, review, and so on. But at some point, when we got to this magical barrier of over 50%, people went crazy, and their work efficiency was over the top. So it's important for the team to actually see the progress that you're doing, that from last week to this week, we actually made progress. It makes the whole thing much easier. The other thing is developing a game in a more efficient way. The better you do at production side, the better you're going to get at it. So the more schedules you fail, the more milestones you're going to fail. It's going to actually give you more knowledge and experience. But if you plan it before thoroughly, it's gonna be super efficient for you. I talked once with a producer who told me that every single time when he does something, there's this magic rule between producers in every big game company. When you do a plan, you always add 30% to it. So you add 30% to time management, you add 30% to budget, and then you have the perfect number. But he actually told me that I should always plan with 60% up, because everything goes sideways at some point. We always will have the problem of not having enough money, we're always going to have a problem of not having enough people, time, etc. And we're always going to have those crazy game directors or other people who are telling us that we need more features in the game because it's been already so packed full of features, so let's add a little bit more and mess things up. So it's important to understand and to remember that even though you fail along the way, and even though maybe the production plan will gonna be changed 10, 20 times, it's good for you because you and the team are learning something. And if you do it by the book, it might actually not fail that much. So next one, it's quite interesting because it came to me when I started working as a publisher right now. So being able to talk about the game, about the features and the time it's going to get before it gets released. And let me tell you, from my experience right now, I'm talking with some game developers who are saying, you know, we have this awesome game, it's fantastic. It's going to be like, you know, the next Legend of Zelda, but like on mobile phones or in browser, and basically we're gonna, like, it's gonna be so packed full of features. And I ask them when it's gonna be released, and they say, oh, like maybe next year. Okay, so what time? Like Q1, Q2, Q3? yeah, we don't know, like between, you know, January and December. And I just, like, I don't know what to do. Like, at this point, I just tell them, okay, show me the production plan. I want to see how many features are you getting in, and I want to understand this better. And in some cases, they actually don't have that. They're just going with the flow. Like, they're just coming up with something, and they're just implementing it, and then doing the bug fixes. And it doesn't work, I can tell you it right now. If you're doing something like that, your game is going to be dead within months. Because you have to, at some point, you have to tell yourself that we're going to stop and we can't implement more features because the engine's not going to take it, because the frame drop will drop. And like, we don't really have that much time, especially as publishers, when we're doing our own plans and we want to organize something. So we want to know how many games we're going to have in Q1, Q2, Q3, etc. And if somebody tells me that their game is going to be next year, I already know that they don't really have a plan, the production plan, the proper one, with their game development. If they tell me like, okay, so from our calculations it's like 5 people more and we're going to finish it and it's going to be awesome, then I can already see that they're doing some math behind it and that the time management is not that bad because they already know what they need to finish the game. And that already tells us something. So next one, it's pretty straightforward, but some people actually don't think about it, but planning out marketing efforts in advance. So I've had this in one of the companies I worked before as a producer. The marketing team went to me and they said that they want to showcase the game, they want to tease it to the players. And I said, you know, it's not going to happen because we don't have built, like the art is not looking as we want to, and the game itself plays a little bit differently than we want to. But they said that they had plans already and they have to deliver something for tomorrow, like a screenshot or something. And actually we argued quite a lot about it, but the good thing that came out of it is that we planned out some features that we were going to tease in the next months, and we did it with the marketing team, so we could actually showcase all the stuff that we wanted to at the points that we wanted to, so in time. And it's also good to remember that your game, even if it's the best game out there and you think like there's never going to be a like better game than this, even these games will fail drastically if you don't plan out your marketing efforts and you don't do the marketing beforehand. So it's not just going to sell itself when it comes out. So you have to tease it, you have to do all the YouTube stuff and Twitch and etc. So it's important that when you do these things, always remember that if you're working with a media partner, a publisher, or even your own marketing team, to always have that in mind, that you're going to have to showcase something. And it's probably going to be final at some point. So you can't really change the graphics, or you can't change the UI because they're going to, you know, the fans, they're going to be crazy and they're not going to understand what's going on with the project. And last but not least, I already told you about it before, but actually good production plan helps you finish the game. If you don't have a production plan, you're just going with the flow, or you don't care much about the production plan, you're ultimately going to fail your game, make it unplayable, or even just drop the project and move to something next because this one has so many bugs or so many problems that it's gonna suck. And this is also from my experience, from hackathons, from working in big studios. This actually happens everywhere. So no matter how big the company is, if the production plan fails, it's going to be delayed for a couple of years, or you're never going to finish it because like it's going to be a budget well without end. So let's just wrap things up. You want to make the team feel accomplished. You want to develop and learn in a more efficient way. You want to be able to talk about the features and the time it's going to take with potential third parties and publishers. And you want to plan out your marketing efforts in advance, so you have to know what's going on with the game. And you want to finish the game itself. And this is quite important as well, you don't end up in crunch. this is also from my experience. When we had bad production plans or we had too much features to do, we were in constant crunch for months, one time even almost for a year. And when I mean crunch, it's not just staying 1-2 hours longer, but it's actually staying on the weekends and doing all the stuff and working 14 hours a day. And if you have a good plan that's working, you're never going to have this, or you're going to have very, very small periods of it. And this is also what I experienced at some point, that when we had the team who understood what we're doing, they understood the plan, and we as producers knew what we were doing with the game itself, we actually didn't crunch that much, like let's say once per 3-4 months, like for a day or two. So it wasn't really that bad. But the more you crunch, the more you have to think about what you're doing wrong with your game. And that's basically it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have